1140 The Fan.
Talkin Money!
And we're back to Talkin Money. And here's Jeff Tarbell.
Yeah. Little crew on a Saturday morning.
Wound up a little bit.
Get up. Time to get up, Daryl. My other brother, Daryl. 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. No, take my wife, please, was not the answer, although it could be. So the question was, what did President Obama say that really put a lot of the small business people on edge?
Yeah, he said you didn't build that, and that refers to companies, small companies.
Yeah, let me sit for a second.
Yeah, the government was the one who made that happen, apparently.
Yeah, and I was looking through that article a little bit. He was well, it says here it was testing different messages, and there was. Here we go. Senate candidate Elizabeth Warren gave last August. She was in Massachusetts. She gave a similar speech where she said her argument was that the government is the real source of all business success.
Unbelievable.
So
make your blood boil for some folks.
Well, the theory is the government put in the roads that you drove to work, and government did this and that, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how did government make any money? Government makes money off taxes, which, anywho, but it was a gaffe. I'm sure, maybe he was a trial balloon, maybe it was just a mess up, and maybe that's what he really believes. I don't know, because it's campaign season. I don't know what anybody believes anymore.
Right.
Mr. Romney went over to over the pond
London, yeah.
and stepped on his own tongue as well over there. This place looks like crap. You guys aren't ready for it, so you're going to do stupid stuff. I do it every 5 or 6 seconds
Sure.
on the so. There's nobody's listening. It doesn't really matter here. But anyway, we got a lot of people that got that close. So we did get a couple winners for that, for some River Cats tickets. Speaking of you didn't build that, this was interesting. We are intimately familiar with Ground Zero in New York City, and where the World Trade Centers came down, there are proposed or in construction or completed World Trade Center 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you're familiar, if you've seen the reflecting ponds, so where the original footprint was of the original Twin Towers is now a memorial with some reflecting ponds, which I have not seen, but looks pretty amazing. And around the outside of it, they've got 4 buildings proposed, and so much for the theory: if you build it, they will come, because World Trade Center 1, which is developed by the Port Authority, is only 55% leased. And that building is complete, I believe. World Trade Center 2 has now halted construction entirely. It is 0% leased. World Trade Center 3 is halted at 8 stories high without a tenant. It is 0% leased. And World Trade Center 4, which looks like it may be already completed, is 51% leased. So maybe the government should have built those buildings, because it's not working with private.
Yeah, you'd think the location's great, but maybe it's just going to take some time.
The article doesn't reflect whether is there a fear of going back down there? Is there a stigma of going back down there? Or did all those businesses just decide we don't need to be back down there? You can't. I mean, this has been, when was 9/11? Was that 01?
Yeah.
So we're 11 years in. What, you're going to just sit around? The businesses were there. We're going to sit around and wait 11 years while you guys figure out what we want. No, they dispersed themselves out into other buildings. Of course, the economy is down a little bit, so other companies just went out of business naturally. There's just not a lot of demand. I mean, they have out of the 4 buildings, they have the equivalent of 1 building leased. 2 of them haven't started yet. So that's interesting, and it will be interesting to see if those ever. Ultimately, things will pick back up. Manhattan will be the place to be, and more business will come in, and they'll need time to build those buildings. But it'll take probably another 11 years. That'll be a 20-year incident. But I'm sure the other building operators and landlords stuff in the area aren't dissatisfied. I'm not. Of course, it was horrendous, but they're not dissatisfied that people aren't rushing back to go back out of their buildings back downtown.
Yeah.
So it's other businesses have picked up the load. But I thought that was kind of an interesting note there. Speaking of real estate, because I cut this out, and I started to, you see this a lot of news about CalPERS, and CalPERS is the public employees retirement system for California. Basically, all your public employees, their funds go into an account. CalPERS on the national stage is probably one of the biggest investors. I'm not going to say the biggest, but big enough that anytime they make a sneeze, the rest of the world looks to see what they're doing or if they're making money. So CalPERS is always in the Wall Street Journal and different things. They're always looking at how they do and what they're doing. And CalPERS didn't have a great history lately of making good decisions.
Yeah, I was going to say, whether right or wrong, they're in there.
They've made some really, really bad, mostly real estate-related decisions over the years, and so did a lot of people. So, you get what you get. But CalPERS is finally getting back into making a little bit of money in fixed income stocks. They're doing well. And the only reason I tore this out and brought it out is I put a little note on top that says, why do we care? So if you're sitting there on today and listening on the radio and figuring, okay, what do I care how CalPERS does? I'm not a public employee. I don't care. My retirement's not based on that. What do I care if CalPERS does well or doesn't do well? Well, the reason you care, and the reason we care, is if you're a state, if you're paying taxes in this state, or you're a small business in this state, we are obligated to the retirees whether or not CalPERS makes money or loses money. And we've got a commitment, and you could argue that some of them are too high or some of them are too low or some of them are too long. Well, it doesn't matter. We've got a commitment to retirees to pay them benefits for the rest of their life. And if CalPERS doesn't do well with their management of their funds, then that money's got to come out of our general fund. We got to put in more money as a state to make sure we have enough cash in their clothes. So as a group, collectively, we should all be hoping
they do well.
They do really, really well, because the more they do and the more returns they can make, the less money they have to draw from the state to bolster their funds, and the more money we can use for other things. If you've looked around, we probably could use some money for some other things, and we're being asked for more money. So whenever you see news on CalPERS on what they're doing, whether they've hit a home run or they've taken one in the shorts, that affects you and I, because we've got to make up the difference or not make up the difference to our retirees. And certainly if you're drawing a pension or retirement, you should be darn sure you're voting for them to do well. So anyway, that was some good news that they are turning it around and probably riding a little bit of the stock market up. So that's good for us.
Yes. I wanted to bring up real quick the caller that called earlier regarding the ARM. He had 10-year ARM.
Oh, the guy who did not have a Fannie or Freddie loan?
Correct.
Okay.
And potentially maybe not FHA. Mm-hmm. One of the things with ARMs is just if you can pull out everything, find out what your margin and your index is, because your payment may go down if your ARM adjusts. And a lot of times right now, that's the case. So your payment goes down, your rate goes down. There's still some things you can do to forecast it for the future, but definitely not something to get overly alarmed with. And do your homework, find out what it is, and then make a game plan from there. Yeah.
So in his case, he'd mentioned he has a 10-1 ARM, which means the rate is fixed for 10 years, and then it becomes a 1-year adjustable. And you're right. If it's going to adjust today or this year. If your 10-year ARM was at 5 or 6%, it likely will come down into the 3s and 4s, depending on depending on whether it's on the LIBOR or not. The LIBOR has its own little problems right now because little price fixing behind the scenes on the LIBOR.
Yeah.
But they're based on a T-bill or a LIBOR, or some sort of a widely recognized index. You could pull up the Sacramento Bee, you pull up the Wall Street Journal, you could find out what that index is, and like John mentioned, there's a margin. You got to add something to that.
Yeah, 2.25, 175, whatever it might be, and that's fixed.
Yep, that margin is fixed, and that margin is funny that you say that, because that was one of those things that your lender could have played with a little bit in the past. You talk about all the subprime world and all those things too. Well, margins was one of the variables how people got paid. So the lower the margin, the lower the compensation to the lender at that time, and vice versa. So you might look in there. A very common margin would be somewhere like 1.5 to 2. If you're somewhere in there, that's very normal. But I've seen margins that were 3 and 4, which means that the person who did that loan for you made probably a lot of money, hoping the fact the lender was buying the fact that when that adjusted, they would be getting the spread way over your index. So. Right. But yeah, I would say that right now, if you're dealing with an arm that's going to come to an adjustment, I wouldn't lose any sleep over it at all. But down the road, would I want to be on that for a long period of time? Probably not. Probably not. I have some. There are some financial planners and people that believe if you stick with an arm, not fixed for some period of time, if you just write out an arm over time, you will come ahead.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Over the market. I find that really hard to believe if you can lock in something that's 3.5% or 4% fixed for a long period of time. But over time, they believe that you'll come out ahead. It's just people don't like that.
I'm definitely a proponent of the same. If you can lock in 3.5 or 3.75 for 30 years, and that's your plan, I mean that's a safer bet. But if you like to kind of be on the edge all the time and every year wonder what's going to happen, ride it out.
Yeah, go for it. And so speaking of if you build it, they will come, or you didn't build that, or we're on the building of things. Anybody heard of the blue seed? Blue seed. Well, there's a picture of it.
Something you eat?
No, there's a picture on the bottom. So
wow.
What does that look like to you?
Looks like a boat/hotel.
Yeah. So the blue seed is a proposed technology incubator, which is going to be, if it comes together, floated outside of in international waters outside of the Monterey area. And the theory is, or the plan is, that foreign tech entrepreneurs can live on this ship out in international waters. So they don't have to get a visa to live here. They can just get a work visa, and they will live out there. It's basically a floating cruise ship, kind of tweaked up, all techno-looking. And then they will bring a little ferry in to go to work into the Silicon Valley each day. So the Blue Seed, expected to host about 1,000 entrepreneurs, 200 crew, and 200 enhancers from top universities, a think tank, if you will be living out there. They need about $50 million to purchase and retrofit the boat, 14 miles off of Half Moon Bay, 2 miles outside the U.S. jurisdiction of work law visas. So what they want to do, and this is a problem. I mean, it sounds funky, but very interesting. We have a problem with we bring on good tech people here to our colleges, we train them, and we don't let them stay. We don't, they go back home with their knowledge and their skill set, and then they come back and kick our butt in the technology world. So we're trying to get people to stay here. So this is a private venture. They figure it takes about 20-minute ride in on the boat. So this is how much you think it would cost to rent a room to live on the Blue Seed. I mean, think of
$10,000 a month.
That's what I would have guessed. This is ridiculous. Living space and workspace will run from $1,200 to $3,000. You can't get a trash can
a month.
Yeah, you can't get a trash can in the Silicon Valley for $1,200. Let's get to Steve real quick before we take the break. Steve, welcome to Talkin Money. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing very well. How are you?
Very good. We got about 1 minute. Let her rip.
Okay. I have a home that I have a mortgage on, and I have a rental property that's paid for. The mortgage of my house is 5 5/8.
Okay.
My thought was to refinance my house, draw $50,000 out of my rental property, and so I'd have a mortgage on it. And it looks like my payment will be cheaper than my house payment that I currently have.
So take the $50,000 and buy down your primary residence?
No, I wanted to buy another house.
Okay.
So my question is, I do have some cash where I could get the down payment for an existing house now, but I thought it would be better on. That's my question. How does my credit report and how does my ability to purchase another house, is it affected if I do the refis first or secondary?
No. I tell you, Steve, we're gonna take a break here in 30 seconds. Can you hold on through the break,
Sure.
And we'll cover that. Or if you want to hang up and call back too, and I'll
just hang on.
Okay, I'll put you back on hold. We'll cover that. That's going to take there's a few things I want to discuss there as well. You want to throw out a quiz question, John? Let's put Steve on hold.
Yeah, we're talking about building things and changing things. Ford is going through a little change with their pickup trucks. And the question is, what is the major change for the Ford F-150?
For the redesign?
For the redesign. We'll go through here
They're going to put a Toyota engine in it.
There's going to be a change.
Okay.
It will affect fuel consumption.
Okay, so what's Ford? What's their major plan change? 339-1140. You can text us at 44-1140. This is Talkin Money. We're coming back for hour 2. Hang around. We'll be right
back, Jack.